Anyway, speaking of Cox, Man United, we haven't sacked Ten Hag as of yet. What do you think's going on, Staffy? What do you think the end result this week is going to be? So, reportedly, there was a meeting between management and the manager last night. There's a meeting tomorrow at board level to discuss what to do. Should he be sacked? Will he be sacked? What do you see happening?
I was more interested searching these birds and stuff like that. Apparently, there's no minimum, because if it was by minimum, they'd consider bees flies.
Staffy,
so, I mean birds. So
carry on. And we have top red Staffy. Just before you carry on.
No, listen, top red Staffy. Listen, top red Staffy ran so other people can walk. So we're gonna let top red Staffy rest, because the joke is overdue. I'm gonna be honest, and I'm not talking about the top red Staffy joke. I'm talking about Ten Hag being a manager. That joke is way overdue. The fact that we're still talking about that is just then genuinely deflating. I don't even want to watch football anymore. I swear, like this weekend, I think this is the least I've ever watched football. I just left the house, bro. I just wasn't home. I avoided. I slept through games and I then went out to other games. I just didn't watch anything. You know, I just caught up with everything later on replays and extended highlights and stuff like that. Ten Hag makes me hate the beautiful game. That's just as easy as I could put it. And the fact that he's still here, I just saw him smile ear to ear after that draw against Villa. And you would think that we secured like first place going into the international break with the way he was smiling. He was cheesing, bro. He was actually happy. No, like you would look at it. If I showed you this picture, I'd be like, guess when this game was? You'd be like, FA Cup final, Carabao Cup final, when you beat Barcelona, Europa League. You would just pick one of the good games. You wouldn't believe that this was this weekend. The stats that I'm seeing is just absolutely, it's embarrassing. Like, I don't think I've ever been so embarrassed to be a United fan like I am these days. I'm generally embarrassed to be a United fan. I'm embarrassed by the performances we're putting on the pitch. I'm embarrassed by the fact that there's people that still support this. Like it's absolutely mind-boggling. Like, look at that, he's trying to hold himself from laughing.
No, it's because I've just gone on to my Getty Image account, because yes, we own the rights to that image, and I've just downloaded the picture. I haven't seen this. This is ridiculous. That's him after the game. Oh my god.
Look at this.
I mean, can you blame him? I genuinely thought that was one of your better performances. You know,
do you know what? Jokes aside, yeah, not to United fans, but to rival fans, he's genuinely a funny guy. Like, he's genuinely a lad.
Yeah, he's the most cringe person I've ever met in my life. And Jordan, you're saying it's one of our better performances. You can talk about the performance in isolation, but a lot of people, I don't know how much of you United content creators you follow, but a lot of them went Ten Hag out just by seeing the starting lineup. And the fact, and listen, I don't want to mention people's names, but like there's people that basically said like you're saying process this, process that. There's nothing in yesterday's result that you can build on going to next game. Just solely down to the fact, like when he benched his center backs, I just knew this guy's just fighting for his job. There's nothing to build on that, because I'm not going into next game expecting another man of the match performance from Johnny Evans. You'd be lying to yourself if you said so. You know what I'm saying? He said rotational. Lucky for me, I've been watching football long enough to know when someone is lying or not. When a manager benches his best two center backs, or what he believes his best two center backs are, because they conceded 6 goals in a week, and then he relies on 37-year-old Johnny Evans, something like that, and Harry Maguire that we've been trying to sell for 2 years, it just screams desperation. I know you're lying to me if you told me this is a process. And that's why I tweeted, the process is a lie. And that's my new hashtag. I'm moving forward just saying this. The process is a lie. There is no process. He's reached a point where he's just living it day by day. He's trying to go game by game to survive and keep his job. That's all it is. Because he's noticed the way I play football is actually killing some of these players. So what do? Let me just change it for this game. No one rotates his best center back partnership. I don't see Saliba being benched. I don't see Gabriel being benched. I don't see Romero and Van de Ven being benched. I don't see Van Dijk being benched. I don't see any top team benching their center backs going to an away game of all games as well. If this was a Carabao Cup game, I'd understand it, but it's not.
Especially as well. Sorry to interject. Especially as well that the reason that our centre backs have looked poor in the last few games is because the manager opens up the midfield. So they're exposed.
100%.
But the thing you said there, Staffy, though, is that I don't get that you only just realized is Ten Hag's tactics has always changed game by game. He's always
No,
managed
not
the
really.
team game per game. I don't know. As a fan, I've not watched every single game of United, but whenever I've seen United and whenever I'm watching your games, it seemed like the setup's completely different. It seems like
So yes and no,
but
but yes and no. But let me correct you. The reason why you're wrong is because the way we concede a goals to you is the same way we conceded a goal to FC20.
Yeah.
You're a much more quality team than them, but you both opened up, both opened us up in the same way in that midfield, and it just shows you that it's not on the opposition. It's down to our tactics that our midfield is just very naive and very weak and gets exposed. However, he does go into big games where he's a little bit more scared and wants to play on the back end. And he kind of changes. He doesn't usually change the backline. It's the first time he does that. But he always makes this one tweak where he brings on Garnacho for Ahmad. If you ever see Garnacho playing a game, just know he's trying to play counter that day. He did that against you guys. He did that against Liverpool, and he did that against Villa yesterday. Sorry, 2 days ago. But when we play regular teams, you always see Ahmad start.
And it's more control based, yeah.
Exactly. And the issue is, at the end of the day, it wasn't a Martinez issue. It wasn't a Delict issue. I could tell you what I think about them as footballers, but that's a bit subjective from me than to other fans. Some might rate more than the others. The one thing that's consistent is that we concede a lot of chances because our midfield is not good enough. The fact that we bought a DM for 50 million and he hasn't sniffed the pitch in 2 games in a row, but the manager's talking about rotation is why I know you're a liar. You're lying to people, but a lot of people will naively fall for it. I'm not going to fall for it. As I said, I've watched football long enough to know when a manager is lying or not. Your best DM that you spent 50 million on should not be benched 2 games in a row. Both of them away, both of them very crucial for us. And also, you don't rotate going into international break. I'm not an idiot. It's not like you're rested. So you're telling me you rested De Ligt and Martinez so they can go play fresh for Argentina and Holland. Like, I'm not an idiot, bro. I just know that you're out of your depth. You're just trying to pretend that nothing is going on.
You know what, though?
That's what I'm saying. The joke has just been way too long. It's actually boring. I took a nap yesterday after the game. I was like, maybe if I wake up, this nightmare is going to be over and this guy's is not going to be here. He was still here. I stayed off social media the whole day. Went to bed, woke up. I was like, I prayed. I was like, I hope the first thing I wake up to, I look at the top 6 chat and I see breaking news. Ten Hag is sacked. I didn't see it. So I put my phone back again. I can't deal with this no more.
You know what, Staffy, though, yeah?
It needs to go, bro.
I know there's context to this. You could say maybe they had an emotional hangover, putting all their effort against Bayern Munich midweek, and obviously missing key players like McGinn and Onana. However, the irony in everything what you're saying is you've kept your first clean sheet since day one. So Maguire and Evans.
No. That's our fourth clean sheet. That's our fourth clean sheet in the Prem. We've kept
Southampton. Oh yeah, Southampton. Sorry.
Southampton and Palace.
But the thing with it is, this is where the manager gets it wrong. McGinn was out. We all knew Onana was going to be missing for the game. You could see our emotionally draining that. And I know not everybody considers winning a game in the Champions League success, but you have to look at the fact that this was a team that got relegated 5-6 years ago, hasn't been in Europe for 40 years, and they're playing their first home game, and it's against a juggernaut, and they won. Again, a smarter manager, a better manager would have realized that and gone, we don't need to be uber defensive today. We actually need to have more control. Because if we actually had, and again, individually up front, everybody was poor yesterday, there's no doubt. And that's another reason why I don't look at it as a player issue per se. Everyone will have a difference of opinion on Rashford or Ahmad or Garnacho or Xerxes. And I've seen the media doing their typical thing now, moving away from the manager and saying it's terrible recruitment, the attackers that they've bought. I just don't believe we have consistently for 11 years bought rubbish. We've signed players, and we've signed players that before we got them, everyone was raving about Xerxes. When Rasmus Højlund's name used to come up in my chat on a regular basis before Man United were linked to him. Ugarte is another as an example. There's loads of players who have been raved about. Now, not everyone likes them. So subjectively, some people are saying they're not my cup of tea. They ain't not our players are not as bad as we look on the field of play. The lack of drills, the lack of basics, the lack of understanding, the lack of belief and chemistry they have is all on the manager. I'm just at a point where I'm not willing to turn on Ineos at this particular moment. It's crazy. Someone said to me earlier, how can you be criticizing Levy and co, but yet you put faith in Ineos? Well, we're talking about 4 months versus 20 odd years. Like, to compare the two is crazy. But there are reasons as to why, logical reasons as to why we may have stuck with him. And one that was presented, LB said something last week which made sense. And I saw a Bayern Munich fan talking today who said that the reason why he thinks they've improved this year is, yes, Kompany's a good manager, but Kompany's come into a more harmonious environment. Thomas Tuchel took over when more than half the squad, half the board, and the majority of the fan base didn't want to see Nagelsmann be sacked. That then led to Tuchel kind of being like the stepfather that nobody wanted. And we also know they tried to bring Nagelsmann back, and he said no, didn't work out with Tuchel. I'm not saying Tuchel didn't make mistakes, but he moved on. For me, what I believe has happened is in the summer in our review, I think a lot of the players wanted Ten Hag to be given a chance with support and structure. I think some of the board wanted Ten Hag to have that support and structure. And I know for a fact, at least half our fan base wanted him to be given a season with structure. It just hasn't worked. The good thing, and this is hope. So if people want to say hopium, cool. This is what I hope is the case. It's not banter if it's literally what I'm saying this is. I'm hoping that this eradicates all support for him so that when the next manager comes in, there is no divide. There is no, I'm upset about this. I'm angry. I don't want to do this. I think we've done this manager dirty. I hope that it's a clean slate and there's a good feeling around it. It hasn't worked. Keeping him is a mistake in terms of the performances on the pitch. We don't know whether it's a mistake in the long term until we learn about what's actually gone on. But it has got to a point now where whatever you think, right, wrong, indifferent, trust the owners, don't trust the owners, it doesn't really matter. He's got to go. If he survives this window and gets, this international break and survives to the next one, I will be really angry with Ineos at that point. There is nothing about how we're playing that suggests it's going to turn around. The support has been eradicated. Even his biggest diehard fans I've seen online have said it's time for him to go. There are sort of United diehards that sort of do, not fan cams as such, but do podcasts and newsletters. I've read a lot of it this weekend. They're just like, they're gutted it hasn't worked, but they think he needs to go. To keep him, I don't mean they have to sack him last night or this morning. They can have their meetings. They can do it strategically. They can get their ducks in a row. I'm not going to, but if we get to the middle of next week and he is going to be the manager for whoever we play, Brentford at home, I cannot fathom or understand the rationale for that. I can get the logic of giving him a chance. Let's see whether it works. Let's go down that road. But now he has to leave. He absolutely has to go. We have to bring somebody else in. There's talk of Tuchel, Thomas Frank, Ruud until the end of the season. I'm kind of relaxed about whichever option it is. I haven't even thought about it that deeply. My number one choice is Xabi Alonso, but that isn't going to happen at this stage of the season, I don't think. Alonso, sorry. Who did I say?
No, he said Alonso.
Yeah, Alonso. Actually, I would like.
Oh, I'm saying hands off. That would break my heart.
No, I know. I want him. I want him because partly I want him because if he manages us, he'll never get to manage Liverpool, and I think he's a really good manager because they'll never cross.
Yeah, we wouldn't. Yeah.
So that's why I'd like to. That's why That's why I'd like to have.
It's out of spite.
And I think he'd be really. But I look at it as I think history repeats itself. The last time we signed the Liverpool legend as a player as our manager, he went on to be the most influential manager in the history of British managers, and that's Samat Busby. None of you would play in European football without Samat because he was the one that. Because remember, the FA wanted English clubs to reject the idea of showing our brand of football to the world. They tried to stop Man United to a point where that actually is what led to us flying back when we shouldn't have done from Munich that night because we were threatened with our game being forfeited if we weren't back in time because the FA didn't want English teams playing in Europe, and Samat led the way in that, and he was a Liverpool legend as a player, and he became. So yeah, I want it to repeat. I want history to repeat itself for us, basically. But yeah, aside from that, no, he's got to go now. Whether you supported him, whether you were against him, whether you did what I did, which was objectively got behind the decision. I just don't think you can watch the way we're playing and believe that it's going to get consistently better. I don't see how anybody can think that's going to happen.
I don't know if people know this, but just a couple stats real quick. This is officially our worst start to a Premier League season ever since also Ten Hag last season. So he has 2 of the 3 worst Premier League starts we ever had. So he found a way to get worse than last year. Last year we had 9 points. Now he has 8. We have 5 goals in 7 games. Now I don't know where that ranks in terms of in history. How many times did we only score 5 goals in 7 games? I'd be interested to know. But the only team that has less goals than us is Southampton. They have 4, but they're sitting 20th. It's just like the stats that this guy has and he's managing to break is absolutely embarrassing. This is what I'm saying. I'm genuinely embarrassed to be a United fan nowadays. I was with friends yesterday, and one of my friend's sisters, she was trying to introduce us to her new boyfriend. She was like, he's an Arsenal fan. I'm gonna tell him you're a Man United fan. I said, please don't tell him. Just say I don't watch football. I swear I was embarrassed by the fact that she told him. And he was like, you know what he said, Terry? He laughed and he said, they're in their banter era. I wanted to leave. Wallahi, I wanted to leave. I almost left early, bro. That's how embarrassed I was to talk about football. It is genuinely embarrassing to support this club right now. And I don't know or how long it's going to take for this to happen. But it needs to end, soon, bro.
You know,
no,
Terry,
I hear you.
You're spot on, 'cause I was saying earlier that if he's still in this job, but I think he will go. Of course, all rivals want him to stay, but I think, objectively speaking, when it's said and done, I'll probably give it to the end of this week, and I think he's gone. But if he does stay by next Wednesday, Thursday, that indicates all their players would have come back, and that indicates, look, you can work with them again. I feel like they'll sack him earlier, so Rude has the full week to plan, put his things in.
Yeah, that's why I'm not worried about the next few days, because even the players that are not on international duty, this is typically when they're all given a rest anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's why
saying that though. 4 players today. Garnacho, what was it? Mazzari and 2 others has been pulled out of international duty.
Yeah, but they've got little knocks and injuries. That even if they're not really injured, they will. Again, normally it's the first week of the international break. Everybody goes away. The managers go away. Like this is typically like you watch all your managers. All your managers are going to be. They're going to be on holiday. So again, this is why I say to Man United fans: you're not wrong to be concerned, but don't be kicking off and showing your bums because it hasn't happened today. There's a club meeting tomorrow. Interestingly, there's a guy called Sam that works for the United Stand. He's very well connected at Man United. And he just put something out today that said Sir Jim is kind of had enough. Now, I know Sir Jim publicly said it's not his decision, and that's the right thing for him to say because he's hired people to make those decisions. But I think that one of the things I liked about what our hierarchy did in the summer is that they all have a different view and they challenge each other. And it's so important to not have a sort of echo chamber where everybody looks and thinks and feels the same. You need that challenge. The only downside to that challenge is if the person who wins that debate ends up being wrong. If that makes sense. But look, we'll see what's going to happen in the next few days. There's not much more to report on it until we get some updates, and hopefully we do later on in the week.